Welcome to the Old Man of the Three with JJ Redick and Tommy Alter, brought to you by 342 Productions. This is episode 193. Eric Gordon. Eric, of course, longtime NBA vet, played on a few teams. He's now with Phoenix, having a nice little season. Fourth leading scorer for Phoenix this year, 14 points a game, shooting about 40% from three on almost 7 attempts. His spacing, his gravity, so important for that offense, especially as they continue to try to get healthy, Tommy. I think, that we get Bradley Beal back last night in that TNT game against the Golden State Warriors. And, of course, Kevin Durant's out with an ankle injury. Grayson Allen, who's having a nice season, he's out with a groin injury. It's hard to really gauge where this team is at right now because of the health issues.
How do you see their bench in the first month and a half of the year? How do you see it? We've talked a lot about the summer and the additions they made. How do you see it shaping up?
Well, we didn't talk about Goodwin, and he's probably, and I know he's starting right now, but he's probably been the best guy, most consistent guy off the bench. I think when they are completely healthy, figuring out the defensive side of things is going to be the biggest issue. I'm very confident this team can score. If those three guys are playing and Grayson Allen and Eric Gordon are shooting the way that they're shooting, Nurkic, of course, is a hub, then you're going to have a lot of lineups where you can keep, even with the bench units, two of those guys, in terms of Beal, Booker, and Durant, two of those guys on the floor at all times. Bench really isn't concerned. My concern with this team is, can they get enough stops? And by the way, this is something that Legler and I are going to have a deep, deep discussion on in a couple weeks on the Old Man of the Three. It's something we debated about covering this week on Old Man of the Three Things. We feel like this is a topic really tailor-made for our conversations on Old Man of the Three, because there's a lot of teams right now with really good offenses and really shitty defenses. In the case of Phoenix, they're 11th in offense, 17th in defense. I would expect them to be a top 10, if not a top 6 or 7 offense by the end of the season. Anyways, we're going to cover this, and we're going to look at it from an historical perspective and related to today's NBA, because I think right now there's a lot of great offenses, and even the worst offenses are great relative to past eras, right? They're great relative to past eras. And so how important is defense? And we're going to take a look at that. We're going to discuss it. We're going to break all that down.
And what I'm curious about with that, and you guys will probably get into this a little bit, is you look at like Denver. You look at Denver during the regular season the last couple of years, and even the regular season last year, and then how their defense improved in the playoffs. And if
don't spoil anything, Tommy.
I'm not.
Don't spoil anything.
Look at this. I want to ask about Nurk. Just what he brings to this team, from you mentioned as a hub from a passing standpoint, because that does feel like a thing that they did not have necessarily with Ayton last year, and it's very hard to judge this team. The big three have not played a game. Hopefully, they play Wednesday or Friday, but when they're back with what these guys can do, what he sort of brings to them, I think offensively.
Well, he hasn't been efficient in terms of his finishing. Even last night, he caught the ball on an offensive rebound. No one was within 5 feet of him, and he tried to do a dunk vertically, and he missed the dunk. He's struggled a little bit to finish and score efficiently. But what I do like is that hub complex that we discussed with a number of bigs, Şengün, Jokic, Sabonis, of course, and his passing, his ability to make plays out of the short roll. Again, we have discussed the spacing with Phoenix. It's something we're going to continue to monitor, especially once they become healthy. Tommy, let's dive in a little bit to the Western Conference for our DraftKings Sportsbook segment. I wanted to get into something, in terms of some DraftKings odds here. Right now, Phoenix, despite being in 8th place at 13-10, Phoenix has the second best odds to win the Western Conference, the best odds to win their division, still the third best odds to get the number 1 seed, which seems kind of crazy to me. And I got a great stat just because they were playing Golden State last night. I got a great stat this morning from Matthew Williams, talking about the Golden State Warriors, they're now 9-10 in clutch games. They played 19 clutch games out of their 23, which is tied for the most clutch games since the tracking era began in 96, 97 in terms of the number of clutch games in your first 23 games. So Golden State's 9-10, Phoenix at 7-8. But really, when I was looking that up after I saw that stat, I went to NBA.com, I broke it down, and you look at Dallas last night beating the Lakers by 2. They're now 9-2 in clutch games. Minnesota, best record in the West. They're 7-1 in clutch games. The thing with Dallas that's interesting is I think when we envisioned this team being at their best, it was going to be on the offensive side of the ball, and it was going to be late game shot creation from Luka and Kyrie. They're 6-1 in the clutch games that Kyrie has played in. He shot 62% from the field. Luka shot 50% in clutch games, 45% from 3. Those guys, Luka has 35 points. Kyrie has 31. Grant Williams, the next in terms of total points in clutch games, he's got 11. And 9 of those are on 3 of 6 from 3. So the idea with this team, and Jason Kidd said this, we are comfortable playing in the 120, 125 range because we have these two guys down the stretch to win us games. And certainly Phoenix has that. Golden State has a number of these teams have those late game shot creators. But Dallas is a team to monitor, man. I was wrong on them. I've been wrong on them. They're 15-8. I've been wrong on them.
They've had some really great moments. Are you surprised by that Golden State number at all?
Not really. Partially because, again, last night is a great example. They've blown a ton of leads. They were up 13 last night. Phoenix comes all the way back. Draymond Green, by the way, will absolutely be suspended. The hit to Nurkic on the exaggeration of whatever hold he felt like he was receiving on the jersey, like he's getting suspended. There's no doubt he's getting suspended. That was egregious and out of pocket.
It was their Golden State bench finally played well, and then at the end of the third, Phoenix flipped it. With Phoenix, the Luka thing is really interesting. Just when we talk about like closers and having a guy like that at the end of the game, obviously, like when these guys are healthy, do you expect that number to change? Because if you have Kevin and Booker on the same Phoenix, we have Kevin and Booker on the same team. You would expect that to. Those are two of the great closers we've had in the game in the last 10, 15 years.
It's a good question, and I also something to just sort of monitor throughout the season and look at throughout the season. Something I get curious about. As it relates to sort of clutch games, you need the shot makers down the stretch for sure. You also have to get stops, and so we pay attention to the team's defensive ratings and offensive ratings throughout the season. It's something we talk about, it's something we monitor. You bring up Denver, for instance, last year, they were really shitty the last 3 weeks of the regular season, but from early December through mid-March, when they basically secured the number 1 seed, they were a top 10 defense. So they had shown prior to the playoffs that they could defend well. Yes. So you look for these sort of segments of the season. Again, the sample size of 20 to 25 games. But as it relates to clutch games, one of the things to monitor is like, can a team get stops in clutch time? And right now, I think that's where I think Phoenix needs to be better. And they certainly have sort of the late game shot creators. Again, this has been our DraftKings Sportsbook segment. Get in on the NBA action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code JJ. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on basketball. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code JJ. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 and over, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/basketball terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. I want to get to our guy, Eric Gordon, who's seen a lot, played in a lot of big games. We cover a ton of stuff with him. I was really excited. One of the things I was really excited to just dive into and ask him about was that Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors that he was a part of when Houston missed 27 threes in a row. His answer to my question will actually surprise you because it surprised me. Let's get to our conversation with NBA vet, Phoenix Suns, Eric Gordon. Eric, one of my favorite pastimes is going on basketballreference.com and looking at player profiles. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but every player has a nickname on their bio. Some have multiple nicknames, and some seem a little far-fetched. And I wanted to go through your nicknames to see which one of these are real and which ones are not.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Hobbit.
That's a real one.
That's a real one. E.G., I get.
Yep.
E.J.
Eric Jr.
Eric Jr., there you go. E-Money.
Uh-huh.
Splash Gordon.
I started in Houston.
3G.
That's not a real one.
That's not a real one. And I feel like this was real, especially early in your career. Air Gordon?
Yeah, that was both. They started that in high school when I played against Jordan's kids. So that.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right. So 6 of 7. That's pretty good. Explain to me the Hobbit.
Man, well, I think Marcus Camby gave me that name, and he thought because I was like one of the shorter guys on the team, and I was young, so I don't know. He just threw that nickname out there, and all the veterans just jumped up, ran with it. So
that's an interesting one.
Yeah,
I don't see it, for being honest. I don't see it. You guys had an awesome game last night in the Garden. Is there a better place to play a basketball game as a visitor? Hit 6 threes and have one of your teammates hit a game winner. Is there a better place?
No. The Garden is the place to be.
What was your sort of vantage point over in the left corner with Book? We did a segment this morning with Legler about sort of how Book used Quickly's double to then get sort of momentum going into that DHO and Randall coming up. Was all of that by design in terms of the player placement when the DHO was going to happen, trying to involve Randall?
Yes, that was part of what we were trying to do, kind of use him in pick and roll and kind of sometimes keep me close to Book because New York likes to help. They like to load. And, they got to pick their poison because, Book, he's always going to draw a lot of attraction and sometimes he's going to kick it to me and without doing too much dribbling and I just got to be ready sometimes. And, but yeah, like you said, that was our game plan throughout the whole game.
Yeah, I feel like Vogel, it started even last year a little bit with KD and Book, but the thing I've really noticed has been the spacing. When those two guys are on the floor together, it always seems like one of them is a pass away. Yesterday, no KD. You were oftentimes, when Book had the ball, the guy that was a pass away. How much are you guys discussing that? How much are you guys going over that in film and practice? Like, how much of an emphasis has that spacing component been in terms of the guy that's one pass away?
Yeah, it's been a major emphasis on it, but as a shooter, of course you want to give those guys space, but sometimes you can change the game if they kick it to a shooter and they knock, and the other team sees you knock one or two down, and then that really changes the game because some of your best players on the floor, they're always going to have the ball. They're always going to get the shots. They're going to always have the ball. But sometimes when you, of course, you want them to operate in space. But when you're able to kick it to your shooters, and then, how can you double team How can you double team the guys that are on your like KD or Book or Brad when he comes back? You're not. It's going to be really hard to.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that gets me excited about your offense is, there's going to be lineups where, let's just say, like it's Nurkic, you, Brad, Book, KD, all on the court together. Whoever operates pick and roll with Nurkic, he's rolling to the rim. The pick your poison thing, particularly with Book and KD being able to efficiently score from the mid range. I think within a playoff series, I don't know what records because of injuries and the long season. I don't know what your record ends up being, but I think in a playoff series, those are a lot of game plan adjustments game to game within a playoff series.
Oh, for sure. Like you said, we got a lot of playmakers, good shooters. And as long as we, play fast, make quick decisions when those guys catch it, offensively, we're just going to be a nightmare for other teams.
When you've competed against Kevin in the playoffs last year, competed against Book. He had a big first round against you guys in the Clippers. Just being around them every day now, like, what are your impressions of them as players, or anything new you learned about them? Their personalities, their competitiveness, all the stuff that you've seen from the outside, but now you're a part of their team.
Yeah, I haven't told a lot of people this. I would say one of the main reasons why I came to Phoenix, it was I saw the vision of their team, but when I went against Phoenix last year, how Book and Katie, how they kind of embrace each other. A lot of stars they don't really embrace each other, and of course, and I was like, man, if I can go there and space the floor out for those guys and try to create opportunities, not for them, and where both of us can create opportunities for one another. I just think it would be just even better for all of us to have a chance to try to do something special. But when I saw that they're commending one another, that made me like, this could be something good.
We saw the clip yesterday of Katie on the bench, walking onto the court when the ball goes up, and that seems genuine. The two of them, in terms of their partnership and the way they encourage each other and recognize each other's games.
Katie and Books really it's real. It's genuine from practice to game and off the court. That's a major part of why I came here.
Yeah. Did you have other offers? I was curious as a observer from the outside, an analyst, whatever. As they made the Bradley Beal trade, it's like, all right, well, how are they going to fill out the roster? And truthfully, you guys got a bunch of guys to come on minimum contracts. Did you have other offers for more money, or was this always just somewhere you were like, I want to go try to win a championship with these guys?
No, I have offers from more money from other teams. But it wasn't like it was a drastic amount.
Right.
But yeah, I had plenty of options, Golden State, Milwaukee. I had all the winning the teams that were expected to try to win for this year. But I just felt like, Phoenix was my best bet.
You've played with a number of future Hall of Famers, a number of great players, James and Chris, Anthony Davis, Russ, Paul, Kawhi, Book and Katie, now early Blake Griffin.
Right.
He's Hall of Fame in my book. Early Blake Griffin is Hall of Fame in my book. And all different players, all different personalities. Are there any commonalities that you've seen with great players in the league that you've been around?
Well, they all have an edge. They all have, a unique kind of style of play, especially from guards. Like, you're starting to see, like, I always like to say James, he's definitely one of the best guards I play with. Like, talent-wise, the dude could do a little bit of everything. And I'm starting to see Book to transition into that. And because I see how people like because everybody's different. Paul George, he's his own little way. Kawhi is his own little way. But they always play with that edge. But everybody's different. But I really enjoy how Book is transitioned into, like, playmaker, not just a scorer, not just being set up to score. So, everybody's a little talented in our own little way.
Yeah. The thing with Book, the playmaking piece has been remarkable. We've spoken about it a number of times on the podcast. Vogel told us that he feels like he downloaded Chris Paul's brain. And I always go back to a couple of years ago when we had Chris on the podcast. And I think it's right around the time I termed the coin sicko, and in a very positive way. And CP was like, nah, he's like, dude, he's like, Book is one of us. Like, he's a sicko. Like, he's a psycho. He's competitive. He's wired. I talk to people sometimes that, like, know him really well, and it's almost like before a big game, like, he's so focused and amped up. And I love hearing stories like that. This is your 16th year?
16.
Yeah. Because I feel like players, and there's some star players too, that, like, we in general just get, like, a bad rap, like, regular season doesn't matter, or, guys disappear in guys don't want it. I hate that sort of analysis. And it's like, all of us wake up every day with the intention to play well and to go win a basketball game.
Right. No, you're right about that. I just think this league is just so much younger. And when you see these younger guys, for one, I don't know if it's all about winning to them. They're all trying to figure out their role. How can they grow as a player? And then how can I do it to affect winning is like the last part, where when me and you were playing, like, you're not starting coming into, no matter what draft pick you were. You could be the number 2 draft pick, but you're coming off the bench and figuring it out. And you always got that stability of trying to win and play the right way and make the right habits. And so it's just a different day and age, but regular season definitely matters. I'm telling you, any good team that shows any domination during the regular season, it works out, and it works out well for them in the playoffs.
I feel like, to a degree, I'm sure there's examples, and feel free to call Eric and I out on this, any listener or viewer. I'm sure there's examples of guys that were, early in our careers. We're basically the same era, but they were handed a position and got to play through mistakes. I was not fortunate enough to be in that position. I had to learn how to impact winning before I could play more than 8 minutes in a game. And I just think it's different. And I was going to ask you about this later, but just because you brought it up, and I think it's a really interesting because of your experience in your career, where you go to Houston and you're on really good teams, you're on contenders, you guys get to the conference finals a couple times. And then after the James trade with a new coach, it's like full-on rebuild mode. What was the biggest challenge in Houston after James left for you as one of the older guys and someone who it's like this stark difference between we're playing and trying to compete for a championship, and now it's like we're going to let the young guys play?
I mean, there's no way in there's really no way in answering that. To be honest, I just don't know how you can, when you have, I think, 10 to 12 guys that were under 23 years old. They were like 23, 24 years old, and try to have all of them try to play the right way. That's just, to me, that's just the hardest part.
Playing the right way. But here's a question I have for you. And this is not me throwing any shade at anyone in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Whose job is that, in your opinion? Whose job is that to ensure that they're trying to play the right way? Because I think what you just said is important. I think for a lot of young guys, and I think to a degree, you and I probably in some capacity felt this way. Hey, I want to make a name for myself. I want to be in the rotation. I want to start, or I want to put up these numbers. I want to earn my first contract. I think that's human nature, right? There's obviously got to be someone teaching them to play the right way. Otherwise, the worst part of our human nature as players will come out.
Right. Oh, for sure. It's going to come out. But it was like, like a lot of these guys, like you said, I mean, a lot of these things are kind of given to him. It's like, can I bet on this young guy if I just play him a ton of minutes and he'll just figure it out throughout the season? Maybe he could be a lot better. But yeah, just because he's putting up numbers, that doesn't mean he's going to put up numbers when he's in a winning situation. So it's just bad habits.
Yeah.
It's just bad habits.
Did you feel distraught at times?
For sure, man. I mean, like I said, man, I mean, of course I love Houston. I was on the winning side and the losing side, but it was just tough turnaround for me.
Yeah. This Rookie Spotlight is presented by Smartwater Alkaline. Our last segment focused on Wemby, but we can't talk about rookies elevating their game without shining a spotlight on Brandon Miller. The number 2 pick in the draft is off to a solid start, averaging 14 points and 4 rebounds a game, even having a 29-point game versus the Knicks a few weeks back. He knocks down threes, he's an efficient ball mover, and has already shown off his high-flying athleticism. A monster block versus the Nets and a crazy poster dunk in another game. Like all rookies, Miller can continue to improve throughout his first season. I've seen flashes of a high basketball IQ. I'd love for him to continue to tap into that. He's got a crazy 7-foot wingspan. He can have a monster impact defensively. We've already seen him improve as a shooter. He's shooting 48% from three over his last 6 games, and he's started in 10 of the last 11 games. For Brandon and all people looking to elevate in all areas of their lives, look no further than Smartwater Alkaline. They've upped the game so you can up your game too. Grab one at a store near you. 'Tis the season of giving, but you know what? It's also the season of taking a little time for yourself. And what better way to break away from the holiday madness than playing a little NBA 2K Mobile? Whether you've got 2 minutes or 2 hours, NBA 2K Mobile is the must-play mobile basketball game. Unbeatable court action in the palm of your hand for basketball sickos like me and casual NBA fans like Jason and Richie. I'm currently an attorney with a front court featuring Hakeem and Chet Holmgren. I dare you to try to stop that. And there's all sorts of ways NBA 2K Mobile is getting things fresh with all sorts of challenges, including my favorite, the 3-on-3 challenges. And you can explore new challenges and collect tons of player cards to enhance your team's performance. So do yourself a favor, download NBA 2K Mobile free on the App Store or Google Play and use promo code OldManJJ to receive an exclusive Larry Bird Jade Tier card. That's promo code OldManJJ. You finally made it to Phoenix. I've been wanting to ask you about this for like 10 years actually, because we'll discuss the Chris Paul trade in a second, but you go to New Orleans and you play a couple seasons for the Hornets, sign an offer sheet, max offer sheet with Phoenix, and New Orleans matches, and you've got to go back to New Orleans. And I remember this vividly, and I looked it up this morning because I was like, I just want to make sure I get the quote right. And I got it right. Phoenix is just where my heart is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That experience of being a restricted free agent, and I don't know the backstory on that and why Phoenix was so important, but that experience of being a restricted free agent and not really having a free agent market when you're restricted. When you went back, like, where was your heart at then? When you had no choice. This is not a knock, because this happens all the time to restricted guys. Where was your heart at then?
I would say what really hurt me during that time was I got injured early on in the season, and now I missed a bunch of games. So, of course, I signed an offer sheet for Phoenix because, it showed that they wanted me. They gave me an offer, and I was tinkering. Like, I don't think there was an offer like that in New Orleans at the time, but I was kind of hopeful because both situations were pretty similar. It was both rebuilds. So I was like, you know what? Maybe this situation might work out if I sign this offer sheet. Maybe that I could go to Phoenix then, but it just didn't work out that way. And I kind of knew that New Orleans was going to bring me back. And I would say the only good situation during that time was, you had Monty, that was a good coach. And then a couple years later, we went to the playoffs. So it was like, but of course, during that time when I signed an offer sheet, I was like, man, I'm very hopeful to go to Phoenix at the time.
I also signed an offer sheet as a restricted free agent. It was like, truthfully, I loved Orlando. It was not like anything against Orlando, but it was an opportunity to go to the Bulls, where I was going to start for the first time in my career. Instead, Orlando matched, and I went back to being the 8th guy and never really moved out of that role until Stan left. And that was like, I've talked about it with Stan. I talked about it a ton with him then. Like, there was just no pathway for me to ever like have a different role with him. And I understood it, but man, 7 days on my honeymoon. That's how long I had to wait. 7 days on my honeymoon. And that time period, I think you're right. You're hopeful. And then when it gets like day 5 or 6, you're like, nah, I'm going back. I'm going back.
Yeah, man, because every time I go to New Orleans, I get booed, and they don't understand the business and everything, because it had nothing to do with the fans or really the city. it was just that the organization at the time, it just wasn't right for me. I didn't feel like they were really invested into me. But we went, went there, stuck it out, was there for 5 years, and went to the playoffs. So I mean, I don't know what they can be mad at, but
Do you in 16 years, um, do you ever reflect backwards? Like, have you caught yourself with any what ifs in your career?
yes,
You have.
yeah,
What if the CP trade doesn't go through, or does go through, I should say, and he goes to the Lakers, stay in Clippers? Maybe you
yeah.
played 10 years for the Clippers, right?
You're right, I really did feel like I would have been there almost my whole career.
What's the biggest what if for you?
One, maybe that trade. Two, those injuries in New Orleans, because I felt like I could have had a better career in New Orleans.
You were essentially being load managed, right, in New Orleans with the knee injury stuff.
Not necessarily load managed. I just had an injury and a surgery every year when I was in New Orleans. That was the problem.
Yeah.
You know. And it wasn't so much management. It was just more I just had some just freakish injuries.
Yeah. When you went to Houston and you go to play for Mike D'Antoni, can you enlighten us to what it's like playing for Coach D'Antoni, the whole experience?
What I like about D'Antoni, his offense is very simple. Uh, it's all about playing fast, playing downhill, and just kind of play the right way. And what I like about is his demeanor. He never gets rowdy, and that's what I really think. His demeanor helped those Rockets teams because he let us play freely. He at least kind of tells us the right way to do things, and I think he worked out well with those teams.
Yeah, you got Sixth Man of the Year in 2016, 2017. I was a free agent in 17, and I've talked with Daryl about this privately. And Daryl and I and my agent at the time, we had some miscommunication. I thought there was a 4-year offer sheet. Daryl said it was only 3. So I ended up going to Philly. But I talked with D'Antoni on a park bench in Brooklyn Bridge Park about an hour before I made my decision because I wanted a longer deal and I was only looking at 1-year deals from Philly. And 2 things stood out about that conversation. Number 1, he said to me, I want every guy that ever plays for me to have their career year with me. I was like, damn, I like that. And the second thing was, I was like, how much am I going to actually play? Because you already have Eric Gordon. And he, to his credit, he was like, I'm going to play you these minutes and Eric these minutes. And then you'll last 6 minutes of the second quarter, it's anybody's time. Could be you guys together. And then he was, here's my plan with James and Chris. Like he had already mapped out the rotation.
Right.
He's like, what'd you play last year? I was like, 28 minutes. He's like, there's your 28 minutes right there. I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
But I would have liked it, I think, especially at that stage of my career, because you guys were all older and D'Antoni, you don't practice.
Yes.
Right. So any expectation around
Yes.
night to night, just you play a game, you go do your work, and then you go play another game.
Yeah, and that was new for me. That was new for me I remember we went on like a 12 to 14 game winning streak, and we weren't practicing, and we weren't really watching too much film. We watched 5 minutes of film, and then he'd be like, "Hey, it's done. I want you to be ready for games. I want you to only think about the games." And I was like, man, that was just a different. And then you're really refreshed. Like your mind's refreshed and your body's ready for games.
One thing that CP told me that has always stuck with me was you guys were hard to play against, not only because of the offense, but because of the defense and the switching. And whether it was like that last year, when I played in LA, or all the subsequent, 3 or 4 years after that, this is like so disruptive to your offense. It ended up causing the ball to stick a lot.
Yeah.
There's no flow to the offense.
Right.
And CP said to me, he's like, the reason we did that was strictly so that we could try to beat the Warriors
That's
because we
right.
knew we had to switch against them, and you end up doing it and having a lot of success with it. But the thing that always stood out about that was like teams would inevitably try to post bigger players, and you and CP and even James, you guys always held your own.
Right.
You guys always held your own. So when you're talking about D'Antoni not showing a lot of film, like defensively, your schemes, like how much did you guys look at after timeout plays, end of game plays, as you're getting ready for an opponent? Because I think those are probably the only times really where you could like strategize around the switching.
Literally, we just kept it simple. Like, we really didn't do too much trapping. We just switched everything, and what we wanted to do was just break your rhythm. We wanted to turn you into a 1-on-1 team. That's what it really do. We want you to come down, not move the ball, try to score on us 1-on-1, and see if you can really beat us that way. Because on the other end, on the offensive end, you're not going to outscore. So it was like pick your poison.
Were you aware, being on those Houston teams, that essentially the rest of the league, besides LeBron and the Cavs, had stopped trying for a couple of years when they had Kevin?
I don't know, man. We just had some unique teams over there in Houston.
I don't mean you guys. I
Oh.
mean besides you guys. Sorry, if I didn't say that right. Besides you guys and LeBron Cavs, it seemed like the rest of the league was willing to sort of take a couple of years off from spending and going after a championship. And that's, I always give Daryl a lot of credit.
Right.
You guys had a team that was like built to compete with them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, everybody was. You kind of knew it. You know, you just kind of knew it was going to be us and the Warriors in the Western Conference Final, and then you're going to run into the Cavs in the final in the East. So, of course, it was probably boring times, but I bet you it was probably fun for a team like us to really compete against the Warriors and have those chances to really have a chance to beat them, and just didn't come about.
One of the things that I think changed when you went to Houston, because I don't really remember in LA or in New Orleans you spacing to 28 to 30 feet. And when you got to New Orleans, and Ryan Anderson was there for a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
He would space to 28 feet. How did you develop that range? And was that coaching, or is that something you just naturally did to try to give James and Chris more space?
Naturally did it. That created more space, because I was like, if I space out a little bit further, for one, it's going to be a easier shot for me once I catch it, because they got a defense. They're either going to help or they're going to stick on me. So it's going to work out well for a team like us, because you're just standing in one area and you're just kind of watching the defense. So that's why I spaced out further and further.
Every time I've ever watched you in warm-ups shoot threes and you're doing your long threes, I'm always like, how does he get the ball there? Partially because you kind of shoot more of a set shot.
Right.
Right. And the strength there is incredible. You just said something about playing offense in Houston at that time was a lot of standing around. Now, they ran stagger away for you.
Yeah.
You'd get that on either side of the court. Outside of that, not a ton of play calls. Obviously, you talked about being downhill. You're talking about those closeouts. All of a sudden, an 8-foot closeout becomes a 10-foot closeout. If he gets overzealous on that closeout, you're strong right-hand driver. You get there, right? Creating free throws, scoring that way. But the adjustment from being in LA, or towards the end of that, first year, and certainly beyond that, you're getting plays called for you. You're an integral part of the offense in terms of having the ball in your hands. And certainly in New Orleans, same thing. Was that a difficult adjustment? More importantly than that, how hard was it for you to get the buy-in from yourself? Like, I got to just be off the ball now.
Yeah, it was definitely different for me, every organization. Of course, it worked out well for me in Houston because James, he was a willing passer, and he had to make a quick decision. If he wasn't scoring, he was going to make the right pass. And in New Orleans, like I said, we were a young team. Everybody was fighting to compete where, who can be the best young player in the league. Because, we had a good young team with Drew Holiday, Tyreek Evans, AD. Of course, Ryan was there. So we were all competing, but we all liked one another, but we were all, compete because we're all the same age. And then Clippers, they're a different situation. They do more ISO for Paul and Kawhi, and for me, I just kind of had to space the floor for them a lot more. So everywhere was just been different, man.
I think adaptability. That's probably why you've lasted
Yes.
16 years in the league. When James was at his peak, and he made the comments the other day, and we had a long discussion on it last week's podcast about the system comments. When James was at his peak, and he's in a game where he's getting 50, 60-point triple-doubles, what was it like playing with a player like that just had a complete control and mastery over every possession?
Yeah, I mean, the dude was hard. I mean, he was hard to guard because he's strong. Um, he's very deceptive with his footwork. He has just very explosive too. So it's going to be hard to guard. It's going to be very hard to guard him. But his motor was what's underrated because he can go hard throughout the whole game, just constantly attacking you, and also make the right plays. So I get what he means. Why I'm not a system guy. Of course, he can do it, but with him, you got to be a lot of free. You got to you got to let him go 1-on-1. You got to get him in the post. You got to it'd be better for him that way. And then you got to work off him. And once you work off him, I would say he becomes more motivated to do everything as far as moving the ball, doing this, doing that. So I definitely get what he means.
Yeah, we all co-signed it. We all said he was speaking factual. I brought up what ifs earlier, and I've had to unfortunately speak oftentimes about what ifs in my career. 2015, before you got there, we lost the Rockets up 3-1, up 19 in the third quarter, game 6 at home, just like complete meltdown.
I remember. Yeah, I was there at that game.
Thanks, man. No, but it sucks. It sucks. The 17-18 conference finals. CP gets hurt at the end of game 5. You guys are up 3-2. The game 7, where you guys, it's actually a remarkable. I mean, I watched the game. It's a remarkable stat. 27 missed threes in a row.
And still could have won.
That's it's like, damn, it was a 9-point game. 7 of 44. Does anything stand out? Like, what was going through your mind that game? Does anything stand out about that stretch where you're missing threes? Like, I know none of you guys are saying like, oh, we're going to stop shooting them. Was there ever any like conversations on the bench? Like, what the fuck is going on?
I'm not going to lie. For one, I didn't even notice we missed that many. I swear. I'm not going to lie to you. I never knew. I didn't know we missed that many because we were still scoring. You know how some guys, when you take that many threes, because we took a lot of threes in Houston, like you would feel it. You'd be down 20 points or you couldn't score. I mean, we were in the game the whole game. So it really didn't really feel, we didn't really feel it. We knew that all we needed was a couple threes and then it would propel us to probably winning, but we were still in the game, so you really couldn't feel it.
The mindset around those matchups, 17-18, 18-19. Of course, the Rockets also played Golden State in 15 after they beat us in the conference finals, but you were not a part of that team. But the mindset that your team had about those Warriors teams with KD and Steph, take me through that.
For one, we wanted to turn them into a one-on-one team. Because if they're moving around and they're flying around, passing the ball wherever, anywhere, any and everywhere on the floor, then we knew we were going to lose because it's impossible to beat them when their ball is moving. So we were kind of like, you know what? Let KD score as many points as he can because he's going to be hard to stop anyway, one-on-one wise. But we can feel like we could be physical, super physical with everybody else. And because we felt like, of course, Clay's going to knock down open threes, but we're going to be on him. Steph, we're going to try to be as physical as we can on him. And KD, whatever he gets it, like it's one-on-one. You could go do whatever you want to do. So we just felt like if we just played our game offensively and just turned them to a strictly one-on-one team, like how we wanted to do on the defensive end, we thought it would make it really tough for him. And it was. But That's how hard and difficult it is to beat that team.
Yeah. Well, I think in general, it's just hard and difficult to be a championship team.
Oh, for sure.
It takes a lot, and some of it is luck. You oftentimes have to avoid going 0 for 27 in a game 7. You have to avoid blowing a 19-point lead in game 6 at home in the second half. Like it oftentimes can come down to a single stretch of a game, or in some cases, I think, a few plays here and there. I think about a lot about that series when I talk about Steph Curry a lot and this generation and the lack of physicality. I think about those series. I think about even the Kings series last spring. The attention that he gets, particularly off the ball, just in terms of people putting their hands on him. Clay, same thing, right? They get into their split action. You can't point switch. You're literally grabbing and shoving. You're shoving your own guy sometimes. You're shoving the screener sometimes into your own guy. Like the physicality, I think, is an underappreciated part of the league in general. And people point to like our foul merchants, the Joel Embiids of the world.
Yeah.
James, of course, in his peak. Yeah. They're smart though. Free throws across the board are down. That's what people don't understand. So, there's freedom of movement. I think it's more the difficulty of guarding in space. Like, that's where I think our game has changed. And to me, especially like off the ball, when you get into actions, the game is physical. It's always been physical. And I hated playing against you because you were always fucking grabbing and holding and shoving me. But do you feel like the just in general, like our game right now gets a bad rap and it's a misconception about the physicality of our game? OM3 fans, I want to talk to you about my favorite craft clothing brand, Faraday. I'm really excited about this. Started by twin brothers, Alex and Mike, in 2013, the brand is now celebrating 10 years of what they're all about, making things that last, caring for people and the planet, and always spreading good vibes. I've worn Faraday for about 5 or 6 years now, and I love Faraday because they're backed by their guarantee of quality. They stand behind everything they make 100%. I'm all in on Faraday's laid-back vibe meets classic styling. And if you're new to the brand, you have to check out their iconic Legend sweater shirt. It's a must-have for the season, crafted with a fabric that's impossibly soft, endlessly versatile, and unlike any flannel shirt you've worn before. With over 1,000 5-star reviews, it's the perfect 5-star gift for yourself this season. Faraday is a family-built, values-driven, premium clothing brand meant to outfit you for life's great moments. I got myself a couple flannels for the upcoming fall season. Not only do these things look great, they are so comfortable. For listeners of the show, Faraday brand has an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order when you enter the promo code JJ at checkout. Go to FaradayBrand.com/JJ and check them out.
There is, in certain ways, like the one thing I hate, like you guarding a ball handler, it's almost like you can't be physical with them at all, like at all. You just kind of hope you stay in front. And if there's any contact, I mean, it's 50-50. Now, like you said, away from the ball, around the, like all the blockouts, all the fighting for loose balls, all of that is still pretty physical. I mean, all that's still pretty physical like how it was before, but it's still, like I said, the contact, guarding somebody on the ball, it's definitely.
I agree with you. I do agree with you. But I also think part of that is the evolution of just the average NBA player and their basketball dribbling skill set. And James was, probably one of the first guys. Dame's great at it. I guarded Manu for a number of years. Manu was always good at it. D-Wade was always good at it. Part of the reason you can't use your hands is because if you put your hands anywhere near them, they're going to draw a foul.
Right.
And not just like, oh, it's hand checking. It's the rip throughs, the pull throughs, you get a guy on your right side if you're a right-handed player, and the second he puts his arm on you, you go underneath his arm to go into your shooting motion. It's all of that, like guarding in space, like guarding Trae Young in space with the snatch back hezzy dribbles. Like it's that to me is a challenge. And even if you were allowed to, like, I'm gonna fucking put my hands on you, guy.
Right.
He's skilled enough at 30 feet that he's gonna get around. I think that's the real challenge to me. I would like to see a little more leniency. The one that drives me crazy is something you do really well, and you've always done really well, is when the offensive player is driving, let's say on a closeout or in transition, and the defensive player goes to try to meet him, and it's those marginal bumps.
Yes.
Those drive me crazy.
Yes.
There was one that came on the other day with Joel Embiid, and everybody was like, he's soft, he's not a foul. But it is a foul by the rules. I wish there was a little more discrepancy with that one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're letting a bad defender be a good defender. Like those are the ones that I definitely hate. But some of these ones where you're going into the hole and you go into the rim and guys they can have their hands straight up and in front of you, but they still get the foul drawn upon them. I just don't get that. I hate that sometimes. It happened a lot last night against the Knicks, and those are the only calls that I just don't like, is when you're guarding the ball, that kind of marginal contact.
I want to wrap up the Houston talk real quick, because I look back at like the good stops in my career. All of them to some degree I have good memories from. The good stops, right? The good years in Orlando, the good years in LA, the 2 years in Philly, certainly that first year in New Orleans, even my 2 months in Dallas when I couldn't play basketball anymore and I sucked and I was hurt. Like, I have good memories. With Houston, are there any memories or a memory that stands out that you're particularly fond of?
I mean, together we had some characters in that Houston team. We had some characters, good personalities. I mean, on and off the court, that team was great. Shit. We'll go to dinner together. Hell, we'll even go to a party together. That team was very connected, and we had each other's backs, and we had a fun time. We was together. It felt like every day. That was the first time I was on a team where we were really together damn near every day. It just felt like that. So it really wasn't too much of a moment. It was just, just a consistency.
The feeling.
Yeah, the feeling.
The warmth.
Yeah. Like you can go out, be out all late at night, but you're going to come to practice in the morning and be ready to go.
Yeah.
Just be ready to go. And when you have that kind of chemistry and everybody's having fun and relaxed, it's nothing better.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. It is. No, it's a great point. I didn't think about it that way. But I guess, I don't know how much longer you're going to play. Maybe 5 more years. You're only 34, right?
34.
You got a long time. But when you get on this side, you certainly think about certain games. You think more about the games. You're like, damn, should have had that one. You think about good moments on the court. But ultimately, like, what you like really yearn for and what you really miss is like the camaraderie. And you think back to like, that was a good group. Maybe it was for a year, maybe it was for 2, maybe it was for 3. But when you're with a good group, that's the special part of the NBA that I don't think people really understand.
You're right. Oh, that's for sure. Like, I really do feel if we would have won in 2017, I really do believe that we would almost still be together as a team today. I really do, because guys are still playing at a pretty good level. And if we would have won that championship that year, I think we would have stayed together for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, your runway gets a little longer.
You're right.
When you win.
Yeah.
When you win. We're going to do one last question. This is the Roback question. Reminder to our viewers that you can use the code OLD on roback.com for 20% off your first purchase. That's RHOBACK.com, code OLD. What was the key in embracing going from a full-time starter early in your career to coming off the bench in Houston?
Yeah, I was very accepting of my role because people don't understand, like, you could still be in a very important player even if you come off the bench for a team. And you got to embrace your role. You got to do whatever. You got to kind of see, what the team needs. If you need to be a defender or do you need to be a scorer? And I felt like I can bring those attributes, but I was very accepted because I wanted to be on a championship winning team, revive my career in the right way, and just be like, because I want to be viewed as a winning player and a guy that plays the right way. So if I'm able to do that in Houston, because I was like, yeah, if I'm able to be myself in Houston, I can be the player that I want to be, and show people that even coming off the bench, you can still be very, very important to a winning team.
Yeah. I think the difficulty at times, even sometimes, I think about certain guys and I'm like, that guy I bet wishes he wasn't a starter because he's got to play with that group and his role is different. It doesn't matter if you're starting or off the bench. If you can play if I can be me, right? You let me star in my role,
Right.
whatever it is, whether that's starting off the bench, finishing games, not finishing. If you let me star in my role where I feel like I'm actually having an impact on winning and I'm having an impact, a positive impact on the team, it's easy to accept. Right?
Easy
It's like
to accept.
my second year in Philly, they came to me at the beginning of the year. We had the best 5-man group in the league that year, lost in the conference semifinals to Boston. Brett Brown came to me, said, we want to bring you off the bench. We want to start Markelle. We think it'll be better. I said, okay, that's fine. Like, wasn't an issue. I was starting by game 6, it wasn't, but those 5 games wasn't an issue. Brett actually took me into his office and he had I don't know why he just didn't connect me and Manu directly, but he had like a 16-minute voice note from Manu talking about his experience. Like for me, it was like from Manu to me, but it went through Brett on a voice note. And we listened to it. And I was like, Brett, again, man, like this is the 3rd straight day you come to me with something like this. I'm good, dude. I'm good. I still know when I go out on the court, whether that's as a starter or a bench guy, as long as you let me be me and I have a significant role, I'm good. I'm good.
Right. And that's a challenge that a lot of guys got to understand and have. And with me, there was
no issue.
There was no issue.
I love it. You all know I'm a huge fan of this brand. Wear it all the time. I'm wearing it right now. Eric, we'll get you some gear too.
Appreciate it, man.
All right.
Appreciate it.